Now we come to what I might call a theme, which is called Make Sure You Suffer. Now I'm going to introduce you to another Japanese term, which is pronounced gambatte. Gambatte, if you say it casually, it means good luck or break a leg. If you say it in a sports competition, it means like go, 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 fight, 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 win, win, win. But when you say it, perhaps amongst colleagues or when a boss says gambatte to you, I think that it literally means make sure you suffer. When gambatte is used in an appraisal, in an ongoing form, gambatte iru, if somebody says he or she is gambatte iru, that means he or she is working very hard. He or she is suffering, which is very good. And how do you show that you're gambatte iru? How do you show that you are suffering? You're working very hard. Well, in most cases, you put long, long, long working hours, including the hours you spend with your colleagues and customers after work. And this is one way you can prove yourself that you are willing to devote to your work, especially if you're still a freshman, a junior to the workplace, or you're a woman and you haven't had a chance to prove your abilities. Of course, in an appraisal or for promotion, performance is also important, but what also counts is your personality, your ability to communicate with others and to guide your juniors. The Japanese managers will look at that very closely as one of the elements that would determine your positions. Your reading introduced to your phrase, a Japanese saying that says, capable hawks hide their talons. I'm bringing that up here because it has something to do with the Japanese way of appraisal. I noticed that when I was in the United States, that a lot of my colleagues would go into my boss's office and they would tell he or she what they have been doing. I did this, I did that, I made this call, I made this proposal, so on and so forth. It almost seemed like they needed to appeal what they have tried or accomplished. In Japan, this is not done because a capable hawk should hide their talents. But that doesn't mean that a Japanese manager doesn't know what you're doing. They are watching you, and they will know if you have been working hard or not. So in a way, you feel rather secure that you are being watched. And perhaps this also binds you to a very hard work mode where you have to make sure you suffer and you make sure that your colleagues and your seniors know that you're suffering.
Now, what does group effort mean in particular in the United States? A lot of news reports and and even studies gave this impression of Japanese kind of totally giving themselves to the corporation, totally giving themselves away. And when you look at pictures of workers on the job, you get this sense of they're little robots. They're people that have no feelings. They're people that have no sense of self. They're people who have no sense of creativity. They're not people at all. They're just human robots who have given themselves up to the group. Well, be careful of that kind of interpretation because, again, it applies the Western contrast, opposition between the individual and the group. Again, Now begin to think about yourself as living in a hierarchical system or in a world of hierarchical relationships. And no matter where you are in the hierarchy, you have obligations that come with that. So being working for the group and being committed to the group now means fulfilling your obligation that fits the group. Never do you want to be an individual. And when you're not doing so well, it's awful. I mean, not only do you feel like you messed up, and I mean, we think about it as messing up as an individual, or gee, I'm not proving myself, and maybe I'm not very good, and gee, what kind of a person am I, and am I going to be capable of doing this? And we have all this introspection regarding our capabilities. In the Japanese context, you feel shame. I have let others down. I am a bad relative. I am not fulfilling my obligations to others. And so I'm letting everyone down. I let down my family, the group, my corporation, my country, the world. I let everyone down. So that the feelings of shame can be quite powerful. Given this sense of that whom you are depends upon your position inside the whole, inside a greater concept, which I'll explain later or suggest later that you think about as the household. Your life ambition, your goals are built around these obligations, these commitment to this greater whole. So when you ask people, Japanese people, and also people of Asian descent, more generally, you ask, well, what are your ambitions personally? What do you want? And invariably, you'll get the response, well, I want to do a good job, I want to fulfill my obligations to others, and be a good person. So the whole concept of ambition also has to be reframed in order to be able to appreciate the sense of challenge and the sense of fulfillment that comes in the context of these Japanese images. Ambition, note the word ambition, again, presupposes the world of individuals, and we don't have them in this culture world we're describing. Now, what happens when you are an individual? The implications of standing out as an individual. The film repeated a saying that has also shown up a few times in the reading. A traditional saying in Japan is, quote, "The nail that sticks up is hammered down." And you saw that in the Japanese image as they were harvesting rice, and they were purposely hammering down pieces of rice that stuck up. You don't want to be an individual in Japan. Being an individual and being classified as an individual suggests that you're unable to fulfill your obligations inside of some group. Think back to your childhood for a minute. When you were a child and you misbehaved, how many of you, and think about yourself, were sent to your room and confined into your room as a means for punishment? You were isolated in the inside of the house. You were separated from others and asked to think about what you had done for a while. Now, how many of you, think about yourself, were threatened to be locked out of the house, or were actually locked out of the house? Japanese children are not threatened with being locked in their rooms. Because if you're locked in your room, you're still part of the household. You're still inside the household. Japanese children are threatened with being put out of the household. Japanese children are threatened with being defined as individuals, where the individual is somehow autonomous and free and outside of a position in the unit, in the household, or the organization, or whatever. The nail that sticks up is hammered down. If you stand out as an individual, you have a problem. One of the American, Sue Galatz, who's one of the American engineers from Tektronix, who went on this exchange in Japan, describes herself at work one day reading a fax that she had received from a colleague. And the fax was kind of funny. And she was sitting there and burst out laughing while reading the fax. And then suddenly she realized that it was kind of quiet, and she looked up and everybody was looking at her. And she realized, oops, in a way she had just stood out as an individual. The nail that sticks up is hammered down. She didn't laugh out loud anymore.